Is Kenya a nation, as former Education CS Fred Matiang'i described, of too many degree holders but no jobs? Yet we have a lot of technical opportunities in the country but few skilled personnel. So let's take a look at some of the numbers there. In terms of degree courses, 62,851 were placed. Those eligible, nevertheless, were 69,151. So one wonders where those roughly, 7,700 or so students disappeared to. 2,128 didn't apply, 3,619 were unsuccessful, while 553 opted for diploma courses. Let's take a look at the next one. In terms of diploma or technical courses here, eligible were about 100,906, while those who chose to apply were 28,866, and that's something we'll need to talk about. What a big gap there. And in terms of certificate and artisan courses, those that were eligible were a whopping 213,600. Those that were successful, and you could also have those that chose to apply, were 5,324. All right, let me introduce my panel in studio. Let me start from the far right. Joining me is Amos Kaburu, an education expert with Twaweza East Africa. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Wahiga.
All right, and we have Decima Ogutu, a HR consultant and executive coach. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you, Wahiga.
Let's briefly touch on those graphics before we get into what I call an obsession with academic degrees that we have in the country. Amos, as you look at those numbers again, what immediately strikes you? What comes to mind?
Thank you, Wahiga. It's evident that there is too much focus on degree once again, but it's quite unfortunate that there are lots of investment that perhaps have gone into developing the TVET sector are not fully being harnessed. It's really shocking that the numbers that have applied for those opportunities are less than 100,000. That means that we may only be able to place close to 150,000 out of 615,000. So we have got a whooping 450,000 who will not be placed anywhere.
Where do you think the rain started beating us, so to speak, in terms of the obsession with degrees? In your experience, what do you look at in terms of history?
It is basically the design of our education, because all the education reforms that we've had, particularly from 1985, were supposed to address the challenge that was brought about by 1963. Because 1963 was about Africanization of the human capital, in the sense that you wanted human resources were Africans. And so the colonialists were leaving these jobs that were being held by the Wazungus. These were teachers, doctors, and the famous white-collar jobs. You have got a white collar and you have got a tie. That's how they were basically called. And so this Africanization through the Ominda Commission of 1964 started to look at how we will build human resources that will fit into these spaces that were available. But at the turn of the 80s, when it was evident that the spaces could not be enough, we had now to begin refocusing on what else could work, and that is the reason why 844 came into place. So it was hoped that 844 would perhaps address the overemphasis on the desire for people to go for white-collar jobs, and that's why there was more emphasis thing around technical colleges and such.
Did it address, though?
In fact, more university being set up was supposed to be set up as a technical university, which of course didn't address. But by the turn of the century, which is the Koech Commission of 1999, clearly made it very clear that we had failed in that aspect, because the education sector had not fully prepared itself to prepare learners for these alternative pathways, and that in itself still brought about now there's still more emphasis on degree programs. But you also have to look at it
the way you call it alternative pathways.
Yes, but I also have to look at it from an economic sense, that it's a liberal market, and in the sense that people have to go for what is fair remuneration. And in a country where degree holders earn more than diploma holders and such, it will be more attractive for people to get degrees. And that is the reason as to why it's really reached that level. And in fact, to bring it closer, why this boom came about by 2003, when you have President Kibaki taking over power, and now there was mass getting of degrees, because you are promoted based on the papers that you had. And so by opening up the civil service, whereby people who had diplomas now are getting degrees and their salaries were shooting up.
Because it was the path to
yes,
promotion.
Because it was the path to promotion. So it made the proliferation of these degrees to become so much, and that's why even you have got so many teachers who ended up graduating, and 2 years up to right now, TSC is struggling on what to do with this number of graduates.
Decima, come in as well. What are your thoughts?
The numbers are shocking. Shocking in the sense that we have close to 400 that are unaccounted for. However, I think we have also not taken into consideration the other sectors. I think quite a number of the youth now are blogging. Quite a number of them are in the arts industry. Some are acting, some are musicians. Some have opted to start their own businesses despite having qualified to go into the university.
Okay, oh, that's interesting. That sorry, keep going. You've brought in some interesting thoughts.
And I think also there's lack of sensitization. When you end up with a D+, what are the alternatives for you? So I think quite a number are still trying to figure out what's there for me and where do I go from here?
Okay. I want to take a look at some quotes and get your reaction from them, and they're already up on the screen. Okay, so this is former Education CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i. This was last year at the Wings to Fly TVET launch, a graduation ceremony. He said, he began by saying, in Kenya we have too many technical jobs but few skilled people. On the other hand, we have a lot of qualified graduates but no jobs for them. Let's go to the second one. He said that we are importing welders for the SGR. Every time I sit down with the construction sector, they tell me, CS, we do not have enough artisans. And the last one, our partner governments like from the Middle East ask us, are you able to give us 3,000 artisans to support our industry? We don't have enough, even for our own market. That's where we find ourselves in as a nation. Amos, come in. Could he... does this resonate with where we are as a nation, in your view?
He has a point, and that is the reality. I am doing a large study on TVET in terms of opportunities for holistic development, and I've visited a number of technical vocational training centers, particularly the ones that are called VTCs, vocational training centers, which were previously called youth polytechnics, and currently we are calling them vocational training centers. And this is a big reality on the ground. There are huge opportunities that exist within these vocational training centers, which train grade 3, grade 2, and the highest, which is grade 1 artisanship. So you're talking about technical courses like welding, plumbing, you're talking about electricity and all that. And it's true that the placement rate for people leaving these vocational training centers is pretty high. It's very, very high, because you've got institutions that train very, very well. And 5 months, 3 months down after completion of, which is a 1 year course, even a grade 3, the institutions which are training very good welders, very good plumbers. But as soon, even before these students finish, they already placed, they already have jobs. Now you have to look at it from the other end, which is Ms. Ogutu can explain to you the age earning profiles. That when a grade 3 begins earning, they could probably start with 25,000. But for them to earn 100,000, it is pretty difficult for them to reach that level. And so when people do the economic analysis, they realize that if you come into the job market with a degree, definitely your chances of increasing your economic fortunes are pretty high. So it is true that for us to kick off and start off, there are many, many opportunities around the technical training institutions. But however, we really have to look at how is it attractive.
How do you, in fact, that was going to be my question.
How are we going to make it attractive? And it's pretty good that my good friend, Dr. Ahmed Ferej, who is the chair to the TVET authority, today they actually launching the TVET strategic plan, which is for 2018 and 2022. And one of the things that they have to look at, number one, is what makes vocational training education to be attractive. Because as it is right now, it is not attractive. If you have to tell a young person that, would you go to do plumbing, they look at you and really wonder. But 3 weeks ago, I was actually at the coast at one of these institutions, and I was pretty impressed by what is happening. Actually, I met a woman who is actually a trainer for plumbing, and she's a wonderful trainer, also training young girls on how to be plumbers. And she was telling me, honestly, it's just that many people really don't know the opportunities that exist. So we could use it as a starting opportunity to say, one, how do we make it attractive? How can we make our young people access these opportunities? Number two, it's also still costly. It's not that cheap, because the average
it's not that cheap to get these.
It is not cheap,
but it's cheaper than getting a degree, right?
Yes, it's cheaper, but you see, as it happens in most cases, if you look at the profiles of the children who fail to get C+ and above, they are also children from poor families.
Okay.
So the very fact that you could not raise even school fees for you to go to secondary school, when you are told to pay an additional 40,000 or 50,000 shillings for you to access a training course, it becomes a little bit difficult. Now, you also have to understand that we are also dealing with a policy and legal challenge, in the sense that the cadre of the TVET is actually classified into 4. You have got what you call the vocational training centers, then you have got the technical training institutes, you have the polytechnics, whether national, and then now you have got universities. And in Kenya, we're basically talking about 2 universities which are technical in nature. That is the Technical University of Kenya, the former Kenya Polytechnic, and the former Mombasa Polytechnic, which is currently Technical University of Mombasa. Now, these VTCs form the bulk of them. Now, these ones are actually under the purview of the county government. Now, if you really see what county governments are doing, it is simply pathetic. Why?
Decima, come in terms of your HR experience, talk to us about what the job market is looking for at this time.
I think there's opportunity for everyone. So the job market, in the job market, we're looking for both skilled and graduates, meaning there's an opportunity for each and every individual. And like you have said, I've worked in one of the industries where we were looking for mechanics and mechanical engineering. You can also get skilled workers who've gone to technical.
Did you have a challenge getting enough?
It was a challenge. It was amazing. We could not find.
Really?
And even if you did, you had to actually spend another year training them or upskilling them. So I think there's opportunity for everyone, but I think we've also stereotyped the whole this hula baloo about everyone must have a degree in order for you to be successful. It takes a longer route, yes, in terms of earnings. You'll start at a lower cadre, but if you master the skills, there's a huge opportunity within the many industries.
Okay. I want us to go through this discussion systematically. Let's first look at the first group of young people, those who got C+ and above. We're talking about 62,851 who were placed out of 69,151 who are eligible. When you look over the next 10 years, what do you think are the most attractive courses that they should be looking at? There's passion, and I don't take that away from anyone, but what should their focus be on? When you look at the drive focus on technology, in Kenya, a lot of construction taking place. If you look at both in Nairobi County and across the counties as well, when you look at all those things, what top 5 courses would you say these graduates should be looking at, or a bulk of them? Because I hear everybody's getting BAs, business qualifications, but we are told that those are too many for the job market. What else should we? And I hope I'm not making you prophets, but those are some of the thoughts of some of our viewers.
I'll actually be lying if I sit here and tell you that we can project into the future. It's moving pretty fast. And that has actually now becomes the question to us as educators, people who are in the education sector, in terms of what we plan for our education and what we provide to our children. In the sense that it is moving away. If you look at the 21st century skills that are required, you're talking about artificial intelligence, you're talking about emotional intelligence, you're talking about social adaptability. These are skills. So we are literally moving away from training for a particular skill towards training for functional literacy. In the sense that if you look at what previously we called underemployment, which is you train in a particular sector, you work in a different sector. I was trained as a Kiswahili history teacher. I no longer teach Kiswahili and history. I'm all over doing other things. Currently, I'm a finance student and all that. So previously, it was taken as an underemployment. But if you currently look at the trends of where we are going to, it's almost impossible for us to predict the future. And that is the reason why the curriculum reforms focus on what we are calling competence-based curriculum, in the sense that you are focusing on particular competences by asking yourself, what are these necessary competences? And you look at the likes of what Fulham have written down. You look at what they are proposing as the necessary competences that the young people need, not necessarily a particular pathway. Because if we tell you that we are going to train you to become a journalist, you've looked at the work of Walt Smith. And Walt Smith is basically using robots to write reports, which is doing mega analysis in terms of big data, and they're able to write reports. Yes, actually, your job is under threat. If we give another example, when the soldiers were coming from Iraq in the US, and they had problems in terms of the trauma that they had gone through, and they had to undergo counseling, human beings were actually preferring Eli, a psychiatrist, which is a robot compared to human beings, which means that even the life of a doctor is actually in threat. So you cannot begin training for the future. You only have to focus on particular competence, which is more about flexibility.
But the future, again, is dynamic, so you can't really...
Completely, yes. You cannot predict. Yeah.
My thoughts are, we are not prophets here, so we cannot predict, and I totally agree with him. However, I think we need to bring it home and look at Kenya as a country. Where are we going and where are the gaps? I think the healthcare sector is one of the major ones. We need biomedical engineers, we need nurses, we need doctors. The county, with the devolution, the counties have opened up. So there's opportunity even in the remote counties. So I think bringing it home, I would say healthcare is one of the aspects that we need to look at. Manufacturing. When you talk about manufacturing, it's end to end. You're looking at products, you're looking at infrastructure, you're looking at industries. These are opportunities that will open up for the young ones in the future. And with an aging workforce where you have majority are young, you need people to start focusing on these skills. I think computer, tech, the tech industry.
You can never go wrong with that.
You can never go wrong with that. The world has become smaller. Our children are constantly on phones or iPads. So it's also an area that I believe that we could look at.